Hey guys, okay, so today I want to talk about completing the square, and I wanted to actually write out the steps for you so that you could see each step in action. All right, so to complete the square, we add b divided by 2 squared to the x squared plus bx, okay? So let's walk through an example. Here's our example. We have x squared equals 27 minus 6x. All right, so the very first step, we need to get all the variables to one side and the constants to the other. So I'm going to bring this negative 6x over with the x squared. It becomes a positive 6x. And I'm going to take the 27 and leave it there alone. Our next step is to make sure that a is 1 in ax squared. So right here, there is a number before x squared, and it's the number 1, so I'm good. Now we're going to complete the square. So what I like to do is, when I write it out, I write the x squared plus 6x, which was already there, plus, and I put a little empty box, and equals 27 plus that same empty box. So it's important that you add 2 empty boxes because it's just like a scale. You don't want to get the equation unbalanced. We need to keep it balanced because we don't really want to change something. We just want to rearrange it, okay? So we need to keep our sides equal at all times. So the empty boxes, how do we find what we put in there? Well, we're going to use the b divided by 2 squared. And my b is 6. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to put 9 on both sides. This is how I'm keeping my equation equal, okay? The next step is to factor as a perfect square trinomial. So by completing the square, this trinomial will always result, okay, in a perfect square. So that means that there are 2 identical factors when we factor that. So factors of 9 that add to get 6, and they're both plus. So it's x plus 3 times x plus 3, and we can write it x plus 3 squared. Okay? And then I'm going to add the 27 and the 9, and I get 36. All right, now that we're at this step, we're going to take the square roots of both sides. Now, when you have a square and you square root, the square cancels the square root and you are left with what's inside. Okay, so this side just becomes x plus 3 because my square root canceled my square. On this side, I'm going to take the square root of 36, and that is positive and negative 6 because negative 6 times negative 6 still gives me a positive 36. So we're going to take the squares of each side when you see this square right here. That's when it's time. All right, now we're just going to get x alone. So I'm going to move that 3 to the other side, and I get negative 3 plus or minus 6. Now that tells me there are 2 different answers. It's negative 3 plus 6, which is positive 3, and it's negative 3 minus 6, which is negative 9. So both of these are my answers, okay? So I want to just start by doing some examples. And I know it's much easier when you actually see it happening in front of you. So I was given this problem, x squared plus 14x plus, and I was told to find the perfect square. So remember, it's b divided by 2 squared. So you have to identify what your b is. My b is 14. So 14 divided by 2 squared is just 7 squared, which is 49. Okay, I'm going to put 49 in my box. Now, that's a perfect square trinomial, so that's going to result in 2 identical factors. So my first 2 terms have to multiply to get x squared, so they're both going to be x. Now, factors of 49 to add to get 7, they're always going to be identical. And there's plus, plus. So I'm going to write this as x plus 7 squared because there's two identical ones. Okay? So that is completing the square. Now, when they say, okay, well, let's solve by completing the square. So this is the example I was given. X squared minus 6x equals negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to set this up. My variables are already on one side and my constant on the other, so I'm okay there. So I'm going to just set it up and create my empty boxes on both sides. Okay, now what to put in the box? B divided by 2 squared. My B is 6. Now it doesn't matter if you do the negative 6. I'll show you. Negative 6 divided by 2 squared. Well, that's a negative 3 squared, which is positive 9. So it does not matter the sign here because when you square it, you're always going to end up with a positive. So 9 is the number that I'm going to put in both boxes. Okay, this is now going to factor to two identical factors. Factors of 9 that add to get 6 are 3 and 3. Now, look at the signs. I need to multiply to get a positive, but add to get a negative. So they're both going to be negative. Remember, two negatives make a positive when we multiply. And then on this side, we have a positive 9, a negative 4, and I get a positive 5. I'm going to rewrite this as x minus 3 squared equals 5. Now, at this point in our problem, we are going to take the square root. So I'm going to square root this side, and I'm going to square root this side. When we take a square root of a number, you have to remember we have to take the positive and negative. Okay? Just like over here, negative 6 times negative 6 was 36. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. So that's why we take both. Okay, so the square and the square root cancel each other out, and you are left with what's underneath equals plus or minus the square root of 5, which I can't do anything with the square root of 5. I'm going to move my 3 to the other side. Those cancel, and I'm left with x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay, so you can leave it like that. Or you could write it two different ways. 3 plus square root 5 and 3 minus square root 5. All right? All right, good luck, guys.